this week's great pop culture debate is something that I think we'll all enjoy. And for the listeners out there, we're going to do something a little different. Normally, I moderate the debate and decide a winner based on the best argument. But this week, I really want to get in the fight. So I'm going to let the listeners out there in the comments determine who wins this argument.
Ooh, baby, baby.
So, let's start with, what is the greatest non-MCU comic book film today? Dion.
Yes, sir.
You are a very anxious man, so why don't you go first?
Fantastic. For me, it's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite non-MCU movie. But I'm gonna go with Spawn from '97. Michael J. White is playing Spawn. I absolutely love that movie, and especially as early as it came out, it was super violent. Obviously based on a very violent comic book. And it dealt with a dude getting burned alive. He goes to fucking hell. And then on top of all that, he's trying to find his woman who gets stole by a really geeky, non-attractive dude. And he's trying to get back to Earth to be with his woman. And then on top of that, you have John Leguizamo playing the Violator. And I mean, it really, especially for a young fan who was into a lot of violent shit. It's a morbid ass character. It came out before Blade, and it was a great comic book movie that was super violent. And it wasn't for kids. The only thing that was bad about it was they didn't make a sequel. So I fucking love that movie.
I have a question for you. Is Spawn's backstory your worst nightmare?
Well, nowadays that's for damn.
I was saying, like, you go to work, you get burned alive, some geeky dude marries Hillary, raises your kid, and you don't have superpowers. You're just dead. That's the twist of this story.
Well, I mean, that's a very Vince Russo way of swerving me there. But yeah, I mean, that would be if I got superpowers. I'd be like, okay, cool, I'm burnt up, but I could kill dudes and still be like, hey, baby, it's me. And she's like, oh my god, you're burnt, but I love you and shit.
In no reality do you ever go, it's cool, I'm burnt. Never.
Well, like I said, different strokes for different folks.
Well, no. Hey, Dustin, why don't you go next?
I think you guys have heard me preach this before, but even if MCU was included, I think Watchmen is the greatest comic book film of all time. It tackles really big morality issues. It's infused with a lot of philosophy. We see the characters, years ago, today, and then by the end of the film, how they keep making these changes and how, for the most part, they're becoming better people. The allure for me is that they're a bunch of flawed individuals with real-world problems. You don't get that in a lot of comic movies. It also has a very gratuitous sex scene where you see tits and ass. You never see that in comic book movies. And Dr. Manhattan. What's that?
I said there needs to be more tits and ass in comic book movies.
Absolutely, and Watchmen has it. And then Dr. Manhattan is, I think, hands down my favorite comic book character of all time. He's essentially God among a bunch of men, and he distances himself from humanity, and then at the end he understands them, and it's just a fantastic tale of realistic characters tasked with saving the world.
Now, do you prefer... This goes for both you, Dustin, and Dion. Do you prefer the theatrical cut or the director's cut?
Here's the thing. I saw it 5 times in theaters. I saw it first with you, if you remember.
Yep, and then you saw it another time with me in theaters.
Yep, and I saw it 5 times, so when I originally got the director's cut, I was kind of resistant to it. But in all the subsequent viewings, I prefer it because I think it gives an already substance-filled story even more. So...
I couldn't watch the original cut anymore because it would cut out some of the Hollis Mason stuff and just things I'm used to.
Right.
I mean, I'll sit down, 3 hours and change?
Yep.
Yeah. When I want to watch it, I'll invest the time.
Well, I mean, I think even for me, and I don't get me wrong, I enjoy the theatrical cut. It is very good, but I'm not trying to jump on the bandwagon. But for me, there are a lot of points when I watch the movie and I wish it didn't end because you want to see what happens next. You want to see, okay, well now essentially the world is an absolutely completely different place and God is gone, so what are they going to do next? And then fucking Rorschach drops off the goddamn diary, so what's going to happen with that? So I always wish that movie just didn't end and just kept on going and we could see how these guys live in a world that's even more different than it was when the movie started.
I need to watch this movie again.
That is true. And speaking of you, Phil, what is your movie?
Mine may be an unpopular choice, but I'm gonna go with Man of Steel.
Boo!
Yeah, well, everybody's
The only DCEU film in existence.
right, and that was that's one of my arguments is that it's the first of the DC universe trying to get out there in full force. This movie looks great. It's cinematics. The fights are fast. They're epic. They're extremely powerful. Very well directed, in my opinion. The music score was great. I love Hans Zimmer. I really enjoyed the cast. Kevin Costner and Russell Crowe, two great father figures in two different roles. I like that it broke the flaw. There was one, in my opinion, the story has always had one big flaw, and that was the fact that Lois Lane could never figure out that Superman was Clark Kent just because of a pair of glasses. Right, in this movie, she figures it out right away, and then at the end of the movie, he shows up in the glasses, and she recognizes him. I thought that was a great fourth wall breaker to me. I love the guy that played Zod, Michael Shannon. I love his entrance into the movie when he shows up at Earth, takes over all the technology. It's really creepy, disturbing. I like that dark feeling to superhero movies. Henry Cavill was a great choice for Superman. It brings great depth and emotion to the character. This movie brought in, what was it, $600 million in box office, and he only had a $200 million budget.
$200 budget. Zack Snyder's a goddamn wizard.
Dude, if I could make a movie for $200 and it made $600 million, holy shit!
Right. And mentioning Zach, he did a great job directing. I love the ending. I love the crap. A lot of the good movies have flaws, and everybody shits all over this movie. I see a lot of bad reviews for Man of Steel, and I thought it was a great film.
You know
So
what
we have our
I feel?
second Zack Snyder film
I thought it
on
was
this
a
list.
great, and then, as I say, Zack Snyder did Watchmen as well, along with 300. But I thought he did a great job bringing the first movie into the DC universe for that, leading up to the Justice League and Batman and whatnot.
You know
I'll
what,
say
Phil?
this before we go any further. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and that's I'm kind of worried about the next movie, as are we all. I'm sure we think it's going to be shit, but I hope it surprises us.
But
Brian,
Phil,
go.
But Phil, you know what, man? I was just giving you shit with the boo. I agree with you. It was a great movie. I literally had one problem with it. You can take all the other changes. I'm okay with it, but the atmosphere is what makes him weak. That's what killed me. That's the only thing that I didn't like about the movie.
Well, hasn't that been the story for Superman all along?
No,
Is that
it was
he
kryptonite.
gets his power from the sun?
No, but it was the kryptonite was
Yeah.
his weakness. The piece of his home world was his weakness, not the atmosphere.
Okay, I get that. I understand
Yes.
your point.
So I'm waiting to fight each other's movies until we all give our our movies and our opening statements. But
Gotcha.
I thought that was a little weird too. Some of the science fiction-y parts of Man of Steel kind of threw me off.
Oh, my other big point about this movie, for all the Dragon Ball Z fans out there, when I first saw this movie, I'm sitting there thinking, this is what a Dragon Ball Z movie could be if they gave it the budget.
That's what I have in my notes. All right, Brian, you go.
All right, for me, I really thought about it for a couple of days, and I had to go with Men in Black. It's just all around. It is a well-rounded, legitimately good movie with an awesome storyline. Yes, it's completely sci-fi. It's completely out there, but it allows you to open up your imagination to be a big-ass kid again. Seriously, who expects a giant cockroach to land and start trying to steal a galaxy that's the size of a marble? And then you have our two main characters, K and J, and you see just K is the more the movie goes on, and you realize it's about the passing of the torch to his replacement. You've got the reckless J that he just played by Will Smith that he has to go and recruit and ends up being the best of the best of the best, beating out all of these military, Army, Navy, Air Force, special forces for this job. And as the movie goes on, you get to know Kay better, and you see that he's just a tired old man at this point. And while he's trying to train his recruitment, there's a massive, massive intergalactic problem where there's one option: get the galaxy, or the whole world blows up. And through all of the bullshit that they go through, and even getting eaten by a bug, and coming through, they finally save the day, and Jay gets to go and become the hero he wants to be, and Kay gets to go be with the love of his life that he missed for all these years and could never see.
Until the sequel.
Exactly.
I'll say this before I go. There's one thing we can't debate. Your movie has the best theme song, hands down.
Yeah.
In Black?
Yeah, Spawn doesn't have a theme song. Man of Steel has like a score. So does Spawn, so does my movie, and Dustin's has an amalgamation of time periods, but
It's kind of like the Forrest Gump soundtrack.
Yeah.
There was a Forrest Gump soundtrack?
of course there was, man.
Uh,
Every movie has a soundtrack. Except The
The
Room.
21st century.
except the Room.
Oh, actually, The Room has a soundtrack. I looked to buy it once. I didn't.
Oh, great story, Mark.
You are my rose, you are my rose, you are my rose.
Well, so
Terrible
you guys
song.
have gone, and I guess it's my turn since I'm going to chime in this week. I'm going to talk about a movie that, at one point in time, and still to many people, including myself, was considered the best comic book movie, and that is the original Spider-Man 2. Not that Andrew Garfield bullshit, and not just... It's before Spider-Man was tainted. It's a superhero movie. Yes, it's very standard superhero fare, but it's one of the few superhero films that gets the character right 100%. Not only does it get the look and the action and the other characters right, it actually gets the internal struggle of Spider-Man correctly. And what's great about this movie is that it carries over from the first one the perfectly established character of Spider-Man. You know, the biggest thing about Spider-Man is the perpetual guilt he feels from the death of Uncle Ben and the sacrifices he makes to rectify the wrong he did one time. And no other character, even a Batman film, even in Batman films, has it ever been done better than it is in Spider-Man 2. It's, like I said, I consider it the best superhero movie ever made. I like it more than The Dark Knight. I like it more than The Avengers. It's a personal story. It's about one man, and it has a great villain. Doc Ock has a huge journey. It's not just... He's not a one-dimensional character like the Joker, Jack Nicholson's Joker, or any other superhero villain. It's the story of a good man gone bad who wants to complete his journey but refuses to die a monster, so in the end, he's the hero. I don't think any other superhero movie really has that. You know, in Watchmen, it depends on how you look at Adrian Veidt. Is he really bad? Is he really good? You know, he's trying to fight for something, but I don't know if you can consider him a villain. He's more of a gray area. I think Doc Ock at one point's a villain, and then has the whole face turn to become a hero. So it's a very nice thing, and I'll get into it more as we go on because I'll have points to counteract it. But I think it's great. It's got great action. Spider-Man 2 for the win for me.
No, I mean that's a great pick. I thoroughly enjoy Spider-Man 2. It's a great movie. It's the best of the Spider-Man films by far. I mean, I know that's not saying much considering some of the material that came after Spider-Man 2, but
I was just saying, Spider-Man 1's a solid film.
It's a great film, yeah.
I would say, but I'm definitely with you once you said what follows. It is the high mark, but everything else that follows is a steep decline.
It's definitely the Terminator 2 of the franchise.
Agree 100%, and I think the first one is like the Terminator, a solid film, but the second one just does everything better.
Yep. And then from there, garbage.
Doc Ock was amazing in that movie.
He was, and you had the Green Goblin who was just pure evil in the first one, and it was nice to have a different type of villain in the second one.
No, I
Yeah,
forget.
'cause, as I say, not only is Spider-Man struggling a battle on the inside, but it also so is Doc Ock.
Yeah, I mean, he loses his wife to his own science experiment.
Right.
That's got to have some guilt, saddled with that. So what were you saying, Dustin?
No, I haven't seen this in probably a decade, but isn't it where, is this the one where Doc Ock makes a black hole?
Yeah, well, it's a fusion, a ball, essentially it's a second sun.
Right.
And The only way to stop it is if he could submerge it in water.
Okay.
Pretty much, he's just continuing a science experiment because that's the only goal in life he has. I mean, his wife's dead, his life is ruined. This is all he has left, so it's all he's going to do, and he'll steal and kill to create it and finish it.
Nice.
I think you should give it another watch. I think you would appreciate it more with time compared to what else has come out. Not just Spider-Man, but just comic book movies in general. I mean, for a masked superhero in tights, that's... See, Spider-Man was created to be just a generic superhero. Watchmen was created with the intention to deconstruct superheroes. I think for a character that, like a Spider-Man or a Batman or Superman, I think Spider-Man has the strongest story of all those other kinds. I think you should go back and check it out. I think you'll enjoy it.
No, someone else brought it up actually a few days ago, and I considered watching it, so it's funny that it's brought up here again tonight.
I love it. Like, I never have anything bad to say about it. I got it in every form of hell. I got it downloaded to my phone. Sometimes when I'm in the car bored, I'll watch Spider-Man 2.
Now, does the CGI still hold up?
Yes. Like, I'm one of those people that can pick out a CGI shot. The benefit of Spider-Man is that his body is a suit. He's essentially wearing a whole body suit. So something like hair or skin that couldn't have been rendered as well 15 years ago looks really good because it's just a suit, you know? They don't have to do much with it.
Nice.
So he looks great. And there's a lot of, like, I'll argue that the CGI in this one looks better than the CGI in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And they're 10 years apart. I mean, his character model has more weight. He looks like he's actually in the environment. It doesn't look cheesy. It doesn't move like a video game.
Nice.
Okay, so everyone has proven their point. Let's start arguing why our films are better than the other. And this is just who wants to go first. It doesn't really have to do roundtable time.
Man, it's so hard to want to argue because we've all had amazing picks. We've all had amazing movies. Where do you start dissecting?
I'm sorry, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I mean, where do you start dissecting? I can point out my flaws in all of the movies real quick. I already hit my flaw with Man of Steel. My flaw with Spider-Man. You know what? Spider-Man 2 is an amazing movie, but god damn it, he never had organic web shooters. That's what always pissed me off about the original trilogy.
Is that a really flaw of a film, though, just because they adapted something differently? Because Agent J in Men in Black, the comic book's a white dude. So if I'm going to complain about Spider-Man's web shooters, then how does just this guy turn white or go black in the film? You know, I mean, I don't think that's an actual criticism. That's like a comic book complaint. That'd be like complaining, oh, Dr. Manhattan doesn't wear shorts in Watchmen. Doesn't really take away from the film.
No, don't bring my movie into this. This is between you two.
I was defending your movie.
He was actually defending your movie, but no, I mean, it was very well done. The CG, everything stands up, and it's hard to argue Spider-Man 2 when everything does stand up and it was so good. Like I said, my only complaint about it is a bullshit-ass complaint. However, you know...
What is the flaw that you see in Watchmen?
That's the thing, dude. I love Watchmen. There is no flaw in Watchmen.
You are the man.
I disagree. I think it's a good movie.
I've got a flaw for it. There's way too much dick from...
well, that's why it's
from Dr. Manhattan. Way too much dick.
Church? Why would someone who has all the power in the universe wear clothes?
Yeah,
because everybody else wears clothes.
But he's not a human. He's God. He transcends.
He is not God. I don't give a fuck. He is a godlike figure.
No, he is God.
He is essentially God. He creates. He transcends.
And he's American. Sorry, that was a line from the movie. I love that line.
I just heard someone else talking.
But the definition. No. Let me argue that the definition of God, so to speak, according to today's Bibles, is unflawed, perfect. But Dr. Manhattan is far from perfect.
From your point of view, that's the whole point of the comic book. Is from your point of view, you are like you're an ant to him. So from your point of view, he doesn't care about me. He's flawed. But if you've walked on the surface of the sun, I mean, is your point of view going to be different? Yeah, it's going to be very different, and that's why I love the movie. I mean, that's out of all of ours, that's my second favorite one. But like I said, I mean, for you, you're a human. You're looking at him from a human's point of view. That's why he says you keep wanting to argue about life on life's terms. I mean, that's one of the most truest points that he says in the entire movie. So for you saying, the Bible says, the Bible was written by fucking human beings. He wouldn't care about that.
And I'll say this: you were talking about flaws in Watchmen. It's a good movie. I think it's just a little long in the tooth, and I think where it kind of lives and dies, in my opinion, where I'd rank it is that it's just a straight up adaptation to a point where it's like the comic book is just storyboards for a movie. There's nothing.
It is worth.
Done.
Yeah,
There's absolutely differences. Look at the ending.
Well, I understand there are differences. What I'm trying to get at, though, is it's one of those comic book movies that's adapting an actual storyline as opposed to adapting a character, and I don't think it's as interesting because you don't come out with a new experience, you know?
But you just said that you can't use the comic books as a reference for the films in your defense of Spider-Man 2 and the Web Slinger. So in the same sense, you can't bring in the graphic novel when we're talking about a film.
Now
I have to, though.
But now we're all just being pretentious jackasses.
No, but I was saying all I'm saying is that's a complaint. It's a difference. I'm not complaining that there's a difference from a comic book. I'm saying it's essentially just panel by panel, page by page. Yeah, but I'm saying that's why it's not like a new experience. When I watch the movie, it's just a moving picture of a drawing. It's not, it's not bad, but I don't come away from it I don't learn anything new. I don't experience anything new with characters I've grown to like. It's like, oh, I read that. It's just, let's see they changed the line of dialogue, or, oh, they got an actor that looks just like the guy. I don't come out of it going like, oh, man, I've never thought about the comedian that way before. It's just exactly what I read, 20 years prior to the movie coming out, which I didn't read the book 20 years prior to the movie coming out.
And see that, and I guess that's kind of where I differ in opinion from you guys, because I can't, I don't read comic books like you guys, so I can't judge based off of the comic.
I literally saw the movie before I read the graphic novel.
Same here.
Well, I read it the day before I watched it, but I think that I don't think it matters that you read a lot of comic books. That's what makes comic book movies so special, is that it's not like a movie based on a novel. It's not like a movie based on a storyboard that some flock of seagulls looking son of a bitch wrote in his bathroom. It's the source material.
Alan Moore doesn't look like a flock of seagulls.
Who does it?
The guy that wrote Watchmen, Alan Moore, looks nothing like that.
It was just a random thing, Yeah, I
don't hate on a flock of seagulls.
He doesn't look like that, dude.
They had one good song, all right? Leave it alone.
Leave the seagulls alone.
But that's what comic book movies are so awesome, is because the source material is something you can look at and visualize. It's drawn out in front of you. I mean, that's why a lot of comic book movies fail miserably, because they're always trying to deviate so far from the source material. That's one of the reasons why I think Spawn is so great, is because it's a violent comic and it's a violent movie, but there are enough differences, and as with a lot of the movies, and that's one of the reasons why Superman is such an annoying ass character, and that movie is so boring.
Are you saying Superman in general, or just Superman and Man of Steel?
Well, I'm saying both. I mean, it's.
So you would say like Christopher Reeve Superman was annoying?
No. I wouldn't. I mean, that's not annoying. I mean,
just the cellophane.
First two
I think
ones
he's saying that Superman's character in general is annoying.
Well, I think that's why a lot of those movies aren't good. Is because, I mean, the comic book character is the perfect dude, and then they always try to make him with these huge ass flaws, but then they want to go back to that, and and then Man of Steel, they couldn't really decide who he wanted to be. He's Superman, he's going to save the world, but he might let his dad wants him to let a bus full of kids fucking die, and it's just like, make a decision on what this guy is, and it was just such a, it was decent. Man of Steel was decent, but it was boring overall.
It might be my least favorite movie of the ones we've brought up tonight. I don't know. To be honest, I haven't seen Spawn in probably 12 years.
I haven't either.
I don't need to watch it again, because I remember it was a pretty crappy movie to me as a kid.
I got it on Blu-ray, and it's fucking rough.
I'm just being honest. I hated it as a kid. I think Spawn is... The 90s are the worst time for comic books, just period. I know it's a terrible thing to act like everything I say is fact, but you lacked a lot of creativity in the 90s. It was just excess. It was big guns, big capes, big hair. It was like a bad extension of the 80s. At least in the 80s, you had really deep, complex storylines. You had your Watchmen, you had your Dark Knight Returns, you had your Kraven's Last Hunt, you had your Batman Year One, all that good stuff. In the 90s, you had like X-Men #1 was a big deal because it had a lot of cover. It just had different covers and people bought it. The 90s lacked substance, and I think Spawn was born out of that lack of substance. Now, I think the character is cool in some respects, and I'm surprised it's still in print, to be honest. That and Savage Dragon, some of those Image books, I'm surprised still have an audience because they're like paper thin to me.
All right.
I don't think there's any meat to it. It's like, oh, Spawn looks cool, and that's it.
Well,
To add on to-
I was gonna say I like Spawn, but I'd like to see what they could do with it today. Bring it, reboot it, or even make a sequel, just to see what they could do with it. Today's graphics, the way people think today, and
I'd like a reboot of it if they kept the same actor, Michael J. White, because that dude's an awesome actor.
Okay,
Like
Jim.
Black Dynamite, he brought that shit home. So just give him another shot, kind of like who else played a role multiple times throughout? I don't know. Anyway, what were you saying, Brian?
All right, to add on to this, man, I do work in a comic shop. Fucking everybody and their brother used to read Spawn when I was a kid. Everybody used to do the Savage Dragon crap when it was new and exciting when I was a kid.
and everybody right now is doing heroin.
There's apparently 27 on this show alone.
Whoa.
Or, Deadpool and
38,000 of our
Harley.
fans have overdosed during this broadcast.
Oh my god!
Jesus Christ, Dustin, we have to do something about it right the fuck now.
Anyway, back to
38,000
my
fans.
point, you sons of bitches, getting me off topic.
Your fault.
Anyway, I work in a comic shop, okay? You want to know how many people actually have Spawn and pick up Spawn monthly? 2.
4.
2. You know how many people pick up Savage Dragon monthly?
1.
Exactly.
How many people pick up Spider-Man? A lot?
Spider-Man, dude, I don't know. We go through about fucking 45 copies on day 1.
Because Spider-Man is in a shit place right now.
And that's-
I'm a big
I'm about to
fan.
say, how much people pick it up isn't really reflective of how good it is, especially now.
Well, it
Movies
just
and
reflects
comics.
that it's still relevant.
Yeah,
Well,
Spider-Man's
yeah,
a mainstream character.
People,
Yeah, Spider-Man is probably of any of the characters, well, no, next to Superman, of all of ours, he's the most famous character. That doesn't mean he's the best.
Is it
Or
Miles
Spike-
Morales, the new Spider-Man in the main universe?
no.
No, it's retarded. Or Brian, you explain it to me,
Okay.
because I'll probably say some shit I shouldn't.
Yeah, you probably will. All right, we've got 2 Spider-Mans in the main universe right now.
Is it
You
Spider-Mans or Spider-Men?
2 Spider-Men.
Well, no, Dustin, one time you and I both agreed it was Spider-Man.
Spider-Mans, because it's a proper noun, and then you just plural. Anyway, continue.
That's
Sorry.
true. Anyway, you've got you've got Miles Morales, who is strictly in New York City. And then you have Peter Parker, who is wherever the hell he wants to be, wherever there's a headquarters for Parker's industry. London, San Diego, fucking Bangkok, and fucking Phil's ass.
Why
Wait,
is it gonna be my
Are you
ass?
banging cock and Phil's ass, or Bangkok and Phil's ass are separate locations?
Bangkok and Phil's ass are separate locations.
Oh,
Just wanted to clarify that. Go ahead.
It's a ghost town, by the way.
Yeah, anyway, no, that's why I don't like Spider-Man. Let's get back to Spider-Man 2, though. Spider-Man 2 is the most pure, concentrated form of everything that is Spider-Man and everything that is good.
Except
As I said,
the organic web shooters.
Well, it's,
Okay,
the
then you
closest.
know what-
It's the closest thing to Twilight of all the movies that we've brought up.
what, Spider-Man 2?
Yeah, the constant dragging on with Mary Jane and fucking Harry Osborn. Like, and I love Spider-Man.
You got your movies mixed up, because there's no constant dragging on between Mary Jane, Harry Osborn, and Peter
She's
Parker. in
getting
this
married,
movie.
but
Yeah,
then
that's
he wants to-
Spider-Man.
That has nothing to do with
but
it.
he loses his powers, and then they, and then Doc
It's
Ock
called
follows and throws
drama.
the car at him, and and then she doesn't know she wants to marry JJ's
That's-
son. It's like, God, what the fuck, man?
That's nice that you can just regurgitate the plot of the film because we can't actually show the movie, so you've just given everyone a visualization. So it just shows you that the film's memorable.
That's what happens
I
with
remember
some
one
movies
scene
is
from
you
Spawn.
give a quick-
He comes from a roof, and there's a CGI cape, and that's it. Everything else about that movie is generic as fuck. It is not memorable.
Not generic.
There's
It's
no
super.
What's a great action? What's a great action scene from that movie?
You mean when he's chasing after Violator on the motorcycle? Even in the beginning, when he gets burnt alive and sent to hell. Obviously, the CGI does not hold up at all. I watched it.
I'm going to leave the CGI argument out of it because I don't think that's fair. It's always about what was the. I will say this though, it wasn't the best looking CGI of the '90s.
Well, yeah, it wasn't a major movie. I mean, it was kind of a project that New Line Cinema decided to make, and it was it was a super violent story to begin with. I mean, they had to tone a lot of it back. I mean, and if anything, it's definitely a niche character, and it continued to be a niche movie. But at least, it was and again, it was the '90s. It was a very '90s action type of movie, but it was a comic book character that was violent, and it stuck to what the comic character. The actual print version, it was super violent. It was, it wasn't, him with a cape that he's going and saving kittens out of trees. He comes back originally for revenge. He started out as a bad person, and he still is a bad person, but went to a bad place to eventually do a good thing, and that's what I like about it. That's why I think as a starting point for comic book movies, I think it's great.
See, with Spawn, to me, there wasn't enough action or enough violence in that movie. I thought the movie was a little... don't get me wrong, I liked the movie. I just thought the movie was too slow. And it's supposed to be a superhero movie, or whatever you want to call it, there wasn't enough action to it.
And I think that's the biggest problem with any movie in the world, is that it could be good or bad, but if it's forgettable, that is the biggest flaw.
Now, you want... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm saying, you want to be memorable. We all know that The Room is terrible, but we still talk about it. We've made jokes about it. We all know that Empire Strikes Back is a good movie. People quote it all the time. It's relevant. We all think about it. But there are movies that are just forgettable, and I think those are the most offensive kind of movies.
See, and you want to talk about action and non-forgettable. I thought Superman... That's packed with action. The fights through the town, through the little town, I'd say from the half-hour point on, it's nothing. It's almost non-stop action.
But Phil, I wouldn't say the half-hour mark. Your movie is very bloated.
Yes.
Like, that is a long movie. Watchmen, I can understand is long because it has a lot to cover, and there's a lot to develop. Man of Steel. That movie's been done. It was done 40 years ago. It was called Superman the Movie and Superman 2. And I think they did it better. And the action was... See, okay, I don't get it. Zack Snyder that made Watchmen and...
300?
What's that movie? Not 300. The zombie one. Dawn of the Dead. That's a different Zack Snyder than this Man of Steel Zack Snyder. It's like if that Zack Snyder, for the next 10 years, drank nothing but Red Bull and his hands were shaky. I couldn't even understand how they fought. Like you said, it was like Dragon Ball Z. I think it would be better as a Dragon Ball Z movie. Superman isn't Dragon Ball Z, and I think that's a problem, And you brought up Secret Identities. That's another problem with that movie. Dion, you wanted to bring up, Spider-Man pining over Mary Jane. What your movie doesn't have, and what none of these movies have, is the dual nature of any kind of hero. That's what Spider-Man's been about, juggling his real life and his superhero life. And unlike every other first installment in a superhero franchise, the hero doesn't get the girl. He could get the girl, but he chooses a life of responsibility and forgoes her and realizes it's a mistake.
But that's lame.
No, it's not. It's how the character would act. And Lois Lane figuring out that he's Superman takes away the drama of, like, I gotta deal with being Superman and being Clark, She wants Superman and Clark loves her. They just take out all these elements for people that won't suspend their disbelief for something like that, but a guy can fucking fly and punch a fucking mega super ray from one side of the planet to the other. Like, I don't get it. If you're going to buy into something, you're going to buy into it all. You're not going to nitpick like, if he puts on a pair of glasses. Well, because Henry Cavill doesn't do that good of a job as Superman. Christopher Reeve Superman, he, they did different things that he was a different character. Physically, he was the same man, but the characteristics he portrayed on screen as Clark Kent and as Superman were vastly different. And
two different times.
Well, also,
it doesn't matter. You should still be able to do that, though. It's part of Superman's character. Clark Kent, the secret identity.
Hold on.
Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man all have these great secret identities.
Yeah, it's part of the character, but Lois Lane is the only one that knows for sure who he is. But nobody else has figured it out.
But Lois Lane's also the only person that interacts with him. There's no other emotional connection between Jenny Olsen now, all of a sudden, instead of Jimmy Olsen, and Perry White and all these people. No, it was always about Superman and Lois, and then the other characters just saw Superman. They took away a huge chunk of what Superman's character is.
We actually never saw Clark Kent in this movie.
At the very end, we did.
There wasn't enough of Clark Kent, man. That's the point. It was all Superman. We never developed Clark Kent in this movie. And that's a valid point that Jeff made.
Well, they're not focusing in on that on this.
But it's a part of Superman. It's like saying, we're going to make a Batman movie, but we're never going to put him in a fucking costume. we're just not going to focus on that aspect of Batman.
But I think the way that they did this movie, they were setting it up for the Justice League series to start it into Batman versus Superman. They weren't focused on... I think they made Man of Steel just to kickstart the.
But that
the
doesn't
problem.
excuse a movie's faults. Like I've said before, Dion, we said this last week.
Mhm.
You can't excuse Star Wars Episode 7 for what might come in Star Wars Episode
Right.
8. You need to judge
It's not.
strictly.
It hasn't been there yet. You can't.
Like, okay, and like with my movie, I'll defend Spider-Man 2. You can talk about Spider-Man 2, but you can't use Spider-Man 3 as an argument against it because that doesn't exist at the time frame. You got to judge that movie. So Man of Steel has to be judged strictly as that.
I get your.
And I don't think it does a strong portrayal of Superman. If anything, it makes Superman weak, not physically, but mentally and emotionally. Superman's supposed to be super smart and what's the word I'm looking for? Not humanistic.
Relatable.
Compassionate.
But
is what I
but
was
this
trying to
movie
say.
was showing his beginnings. The whole movie, he's struggling with what to do. Like it keeps cutting back to the scenes of his childhood where his father was telling him, "You can't show people who you are. The world's not ready for this." But on the inside, he's not going to let a bus full of kids die. And the first one that he actually let die was his father.
And that part pissed me off.
And it pissed me. And I won't lie, it pissed me off too. I thought that was one of the biggest flaws in the movie. But it triggered, and I get what they did with it because it triggered in him, I'm not going to let that shit happen again. And that's why at the end of the movie, he snaps Zod's neck because he doesn't want to see Zod. He'd rather kill Zod than let Zod kill innocent people.
But think of all the bad Superman did in that movie. I mean, Metropolis was essentially destroyed because of his lack of experience.
And that's the thing. He's a superhero developing his powers. They're it's not like other superheroes out there didn't make mistakes, didn't let people die because of their mistakes. Every superhero.
Those superheroes that let people die, that's what formed them to become a hero. Batman's parents died, he became Batman. Uncle Ben got killed, Peter became Spider-Man. Clark was just inherently born with those gifts, and he was just kind of a dick to let all those people die. Why not take Zod elsewhere, I mean, they didn't have to fight in the middle of a huge metropolis.
Well, they didn't have to fight at all, and he could have just let them destroy the planet.
Well,
he could have said, "Meet me on the moon." Like,
right.
Why couldn't he have said,
But why
"Meet me
would
on the
Zod
moon"?
do that? All Zod wants is the planet. He doesn't give two shits about Superman.
No.
Zod wants the planet. He wants to create a
And
new
Superman,
Krypton.
But he's getting distracted by and that's the thing. So this is Superman's home, and I get it. They're also Kryptonians, and that's fine. It makes sense. But he waits until like the very end of the movie to go after the weapon, and I get it. They're scared of Superman, but at some point you would have at least the rest of the world be like, okay, this dude, like figuring out, okay, this dude's trying to help us, but we're worried about him for the fucking hour and a half of the goddamn movie. Then okay, well let's now go after the weapon, and then we trust him. Then Superman saying, oh well, you should trust me. The Metropolis is all garbage right now, dude. Like it's
wait a minute, going after
the two sides don't make any sense to me as far as
the Earth, the
The
planet,
Terraformer.
But they didn't know about it until it departed from the other ship. They had no knowledge of it until it split from Zod's main ship and started to move towards Earth. They had no knowledge of it. So that's when they decided to go after it. They formulated a plan because Jor-El told Lois Lane how to...
You mean the ghost? The ghost computer that knows the
Jor-El,
future?
yes, the ghost of Jor-El told
the
him...
giant ship split in half, and they didn't know about it?
They knew about it at that point. That's when they focused on it.
They're focusing on him fighting the Kryptonians. Then that's a very long fight, like a super long fight. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to throw you in this building. And then, he knocks the dude down. But then, it's just this elongated fight. It's like, I get it. They have the same powers. But at some point, like, is Superman going to win or the bad guy's going to win? Like, oh, here's an IHOP and the dude that was an asshole to him 10 years prior is there. It's like, what the... Like,
that fight scene in what was that, Smallville?
Yeah,
was fucking stupid.
And they try to reference everything. Like it's like we're gonna reference Lois Lane and his bullies and but it's like God. And it's even Zod. Zod, is talking to Jor, and it's like
You see, Dion, I think that's the biggest problem with Man of Steel is that it was created by a committee that doesn't really either understand or care about what Superman is or represents. It was, like Phil has just said multiple times, it's to set up the DC extended universe, and that's a problem because it's like we're just going to phone this one in, and then we're really going to bring it home to you. But see, there's a problem. Because they just phoned in this last one, people have less interest and belief and faith in the upcoming films. Like, I think somebody else said in the opening, like, we're all kind of down on Batman versus Superman. If this was, okay, I'm not trying to sound like a fanboy, but if this was Christian Bale Batman and maybe a better Superman, this could be crazy. Because could you imagine the pre-existing Batman universe with a new Superman universe and trying to tie that together? I had the debate online the other day about, imagine taking the old Spider-Man movies and tying it into the MCU instead of this little kiddie bullshit that we got to go through. I mean, it's just, it feels forced with Superman, and I don't think we were given a good film. I think there were parts that were cool, like when he first learns to fly, and I think Henry Cavill's fine. He's not the problem. It's just everyone involved with the movie, I think, is the problem.
This is the biggest problem with the DCEU. They're not building the characters. They're just trying to, get a money grab in, place them, and let's start trying to push everything we can out and get as much money as possible.
And I agree with that. And I think they're not. They're trying to get as much money as possible, but I don't think that they're putting enough into anything that they're doing. The Arrow, the Flash, they're debuting those on television. Those should have been movies.
Well, they're not even going to be tied together because DC's doing this whole multiverse thing, which is going to be confusing to the layperson.
Yeah, it's going to be very confusing to people that aren't comic book people.
Hey, Dustin.
Yes.
What was your opinion on Man of Steel?
I watched it with the wife, and we both walked out. She doesn't read comics, so she had no attachment, and I've always hated them. We both just watched out going, could I have that 2.5 hours back?
I know Dan's currently not with us, but Dan and I went to see it the first day it came out because, most of us go see the big superhero movies the first day they come out. It's fun to see with the crowd. And Dan was pissed off, and I just let the movie like, whatever. Dan's like, that was garbage. I'll just speak for Dan for a second. Dan hated the non-linear storytelling. He hated that it went from current day to flashback. That just took him out of the movie. And for me, I just wanted a nice, solid narrative. I needed something a little more concise. Like, I guess, how short? Is Spawn pretty short, Dion?
Yeah, I think it's...
Hour and 40-something minutes?
Yeah, 100 and I don't know if it's not longer than 110 minutes.
Fact checker Phil, can you check that out for us real quick? Pull us up some run times for these movies. Like Phil, or Brian, I'll say Men in Black is the movie I probably have, with the exception of my own because we're arguing for it, but like of these movies, Men in Black's probably the movie I like the most out of these other ones because it's short, and I think it relies on Will Smith's comedy, and it kind of covers up some of the other flaws. And I don't think a lot of people to this day know that it's a comic book movie.
Oh, most people have no idea it's a comic book movie.
And I guarantee most people have not read the books, even if they are aware it's a comic book movie.
I haven't read the books yet, but that's because that's kind of hard to find the trade paperbacks. And the individual issues are a joke to try to find.
I actually have a Marvel reprint of Men in Black #1. It's actually a really weird story. They go after a cult, and they end up burning the guy alive at the end, I think. It's ugly artwork, but it's a cool story. And Men in Black is way different. It was almost more like X-Files than the movie.
Yeah. They decided to go a different route with the movie than the comic books. The comic books are more serious, more gritty.
I think they were slick, though, to do that.
Yeah, no. Because at the time Men in Black came out, if they tried to do Men in Black like the comic books, it would have been like rated R, and it would have failed miserably.
I don't think it would have failed because it came out in the 90s when an R-rated film wasn't a death sentence like it is, like it has been. It's kind of coming back to a point where an R-rated film can make a bunch of money. Like Deadpool coming out next week, which we'll get onto in a few minutes. That's going to make bank. And that R rating isn't going to keep people away. No. I think we're getting to a point where
I got it for you.
The creativity is more important than the rating. What was it now, Phil? Well, how long is Spawn?
Spawn released August 1st, 97. It was 96 minutes long. It had $40 million budget. It did $87 million on the box office. Well, almost $88 million in the box office.
Not bad. Now, I'm looking at Spider-Man 2. I'm
like number 3 for 04, wasn't it? Isn't grossing?
Oh, yeah, it was probably... I don't have the numbers. I was looking at the back of the box.
I'm just trying to go off the top of my head.
It was up there. I know Lord of the Rings made more money because what doesn't?
I don't
make
think
more money
it
than Lord of the Rings?
did. I know Harry Potter came out there. That might have won.
Well, Spider-Man 2 was the least successful of the trilogy box office wise,
Right.
but critically, there was a point recently where it actually had the exact same rating as Dark Knight. Like I said, talk about it was the generation before the Dark Knight, which people don't really think about when they think about superhero movies. Like
Literally
I
the
think
year
this is
before,
gonna
yeah.
I think people are going to be confused, though, when we say, like, non-MCU movies, and we're talking about Marvel characters. I don't think a lot of people that love the MCU really know the difference between that and a general Marvel movie. Like, they may think the X-Men are part of the MCU, but they're not, you know? They're part of Fox's bastardization of comic book movies.
So now we were talking about box office. Watchmen came out in the U.S. March 6, 2009. Original cut was 162 minutes. Director's cut was 186. Ultimate cut is 215 minutes. The budget was 130. They just barely made their budget back. 185.3 million.
If I was a dirty fighter, I would argue that Watchmen's not that liked, but I like the movie, and I don't think that's important to quality of film.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick. I did not know this, but Men in Black had one Oscar win, and won another 17 awards, and it had 39 nominations.
Really?
Yeah.
Did it win a Grammy?
No.
Then it doesn't matter.
Now, Men in Black, however, came out July 2nd, 97, 98 minutes long. A budget of $90 million, did $589.4 million in the box office.
Damn. I guess since we're reading numbers, I'll bring up Spider-Man 2, released June 25th, June 30th, 2004 in America. Budgeted $200 million, made $783 million, so almost 730 or 4 million. And let's look at some of the reviews. I think another thing I didn't get to bring up when I was arguing because I just forgot it is like the iconic imagery, because a comic book is an actual static image and a comic book movie is a static image brought to life. And Watchmen has more of them, but I think Spider-Man has a few more well-known scenes, and it brings those to the table, and it kind of is like, holy shit.
Well, I mean, my only argument against that is I think that as far as, remembering it further down, I think Spider-Man's going to come up more than Spider-Man 2, obviously.
How so?
Well, you have the
kiss.
upside down,
Kiss
the
the
upside
ring.
down, the kiss. You have the Goblin throwing Mary Jane off the bridge. You have him holding, the fucking rail car. And don't get me wrong, Spider-Man, the train scene, I love that whole sequence. Just him fighting Doc Ock, but again, it's just, and it's not against the movie, but, people are going to remember, they're going to remember him kissing Mary Jane upside down over an epic action scene that should get a lot more love than it does.
And you're also forgetting the bank fight, because
When he throws the part of the clock up at that's
cool, but I was actually talking about the part where Doc Ock robs the bank and
that's
fights
cool.
Spider-Man in there, and that's the only vertical superhero fight that's just straight vertical. Every other action fight in a superhero movie, it goes in all directions. That is just straight up the side of a building, and only Spider-Man climbs walls like that, and it's so unique and it's so cool to actually see that. That fight scene is half the length of the train, but I would say it's just as good a quality. That fight scene is awesome. And you got Aunt May in danger, so it's a lot more personal than just trying to rescue people that he doesn't know.
The craziest circumstance, like one of the craziest circumstances in that movie, is she just happens to be there.
No, they were there because Aunt May has money.
Well,
problems.
yeah,
That's another thing Spider-Man does.
she's trying to keep her house.
She's trying to refinance her home,
Right.
and her and Peter are at the bank, and it just so happens to be the same bank Doc Ock robs,
Right.
which is no stranger contrivance than any other movie's conveniences. Like, oh, so and so just happens, like in Empire, Luke just happens to land by Yoda on Dagobah. What if he's on the wrong side of the planet? You know what I'm saying?
Right. I agree with that.
Those little things like that are just like, it's a movie. Do you really want to have Spider-Man go to an opposite bank to have to find him?
Speaking of that, that was another thing that bugged me about.
That wouldn't be any more of a detriment than just having him saving some other, just to up the stakes. It's kind of like it's just a cheap. Well, and he has Aunt May. It's like, oh, well, yeah. I mean, it does make me more invested, but I mean, it didn't.
There you go. You just said it has you more invested. That it did its point. And also, Spider-Man won an Oscar. It won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects.
Well, that's good.
So I'm just saying I think we're kind of running around in circles.
Well, real quick, I'll throw Man of Steel's in there. Came out June 14th, 2013. Running time of 143 minutes. Budget was $225 million. Box office was $668 million.
Real quick, I want to just look up the Rotten Tomatoes, because isn't that like a decent aggregate of all
Yeah,
ratings?
I'd say they're pretty accurate on most.
Well, Spider-Man 3 is sitting at a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Spider-Man 3?
No, Spider-Man 2.
Oh, it sounds like,
Spider-Man
are you
3
fucking serious right now?
I'm high if I'm saying that shit. No, Spider-Man 2, the film that I'm arguing, sits at a 93% fresh, certified fresh on RottenTomatoes.com. Now, Spawn, if I could type and speak at the same time, Spawn has a critical reception of 19%.
Mm-hmm.
No, Man of Steel has a 56%.
Men in Black is sitting with a 92%. Wow, that is way higher than I thought it would be. Great movie, but I did not see it to be a 92.
It is a great movie. That's why I decided to argue it.
And Watchmen is sitting at a 65% on Rotten Tomatoes.
So it's still fresh.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised Watchmen and Men in Black and Spider-Man 2 are that close.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan, what's up?
Men in Black was a good film. I really enjoyed it. I think they did a good job with the casting on it.
I think Men in Black 2 is shit, but I like number 3.
Yeah, man.
That scene with his dad at the fucking Cape Canaveral space launch.
That's 3.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was awesome. Number 2 was shit, though. Forgettable in every
I
way.
enjoyed 2 still, but, I like everything that you fuckers hate.
I think number 2 came out in that weird period where you had your holdover action type movies from the late 90s, and then from 2002 on you had a new type of movie, but Men in Black was still that remnant of the old, and that's why it just feels old when it came out already. It doesn't have much of a plot. I mean, they're fighting some evil Laura Flynn Boyle.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing about Men in Black is that essentially it was being used as a catapult for Will Smith, and it worked in the first movie because it was cool, it was something different. Robert Zemeckis did a good job with it and everything, but
It's Robert Zemeckis.
Or not Robert Zemeckis. What's the director's name that did Men in Black 2 or Men in Black, Brian?
2 seconds.
Not Robert Zemeckis.
Barry Sonnenfeld.
Sonnenfeld.
There you go, Barry Sonnenfeld. Yeah,
Barry
but in
Sonnenfeld.
2, Jared, but 2, literally, it was just like, well, Will Smith kind of has a music career, and his song's going to be the official song of the movie, and we have a PlayStation reference, and it's like what is this movie supposed to be right now? And then it's Laura Flynn Boyle, who's people kind of know who she is, but she's the bad guy who her thing is that she eats shit, and Johnny Knoxville's in the movie, and he's like the shtick character. It's just him being Johnny Knoxville with 2 heads.
I think Johnny Knoxville ruins movies.
Not all the time.
He has.
I like Dirty Grandpa.
I didn't like Bad Grandpa.
He was really good in Walking Tall.
Yeah,
he was serious. Is that The Rock's best movie?
In my opinion.
I think it's pretty close. Yeah,
I really enjoyed.
I loved him in Hercules.
Pain and Gain.
Hercules was really fucking good. That was way better than I expected.
Anybody ever seen him in Faster? I really enjoyed Faster.
I wanted to see that. And what was that one where he was the dad trying to help his son get out of jail? I loved that movie. I thought
that's
that
the
was
only one I haven't seen. That's the only one.
I think that'll. I think Dion, if you saw that, you would really appreciate it.
I gotta watch it. I mean, I do like The Rock as an actor, and the dude does a damn good job, especially with what he's getting for some of those projects.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, I forgot about Pain and Gain. Him as a Christian cokehead.
Yes.
Oh, that was comedy. Oh,
That was man, that's my favorite.
And he keeps calling Tony Shalhoub fucking Poppy or whatever.
So before we move on from the debate here, since we were talking about the Marvel movies outside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I had a question come in from a fan. Her name is Heather, and she wants to know what with Iron Man, if there was with a female Iron Man, would they put the arc in the chest, or what would be a more practical place to put the arc?
One in each nipple, so it's symmetrical.
in her vagina.
Something realistic.
Heather, that question. I have another question for you. Have you seen Iron Man 3? Because Pepper Potts wears the Iron Man armor.
But she wears the Iron Man armor. What if they had tailored a suit for a woman? for a
It
female
doesn't
Iron Man.
matter. The arc reactor's created to save Tony Stark's life. The Iron Man armor is almost like a secondary use for it.
In the comic books, actually, for a long time, the suit and the arc reactor had to be worn together to keep him alive. He could only be out of the suit.
He wore that chest plate underneath his suit.
He could only be out of the full suit for, an hour or two at a time.
Because that shrapnel would get closer to his heart.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end of 3, they got the shrapnel out, and he just still has the arc reactor in the chest because it's part of the suit. It's functional with the unibeam.
But that's what I'm saying. For with War Machine, his body, his physical body, has no need for the arc reactor. The arc reactor's specifically to power the suit.
So it'd be the same for a woman. You don't have to give her a chest plate with molded boobs. Just give her put her in the same armor as Iron Man would wear. It doesn't have to be formed to her body.
And plus, to remember, Phil, it's not like it's flush. I mean, it's armor. If it was right on top of his chest, that wouldn't be very functional.
Okay.
And it's a suit. It's not meant to look cool. So if you're talking about pure function, you're going to give her the same exact suit. Because it's weightless to him with the arc
Plus,
reactor.
it just attaches. It's not like it forms around it, and then that's the suit from the. He puts it on, but it just attaches to the arc reactor.
Now, can he get a boner in the suit? Probably not, because it's not that loose. But
it does recycle pee.
It does recycle pee.
Plus, tell her to come up with better questions.
Actually, tell her just to read Iron Man, because Pepper Potts wore the Iron Man costume for years. Yeah. Right, Brian?
Yeah, she did actually.
She still does.
I promote comic book reading.
I don't know. I guess maybe the question is, what would an alternate place for the arc reactor be? I'm not sure.
It'd have to be in the chest because of the unibeam shot. It's a weapon.
The most functional place is the chest. If you're gonna,
yeah, because I mean,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say unibeam. He has to shoot it out of there.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, even if it's not gonna be used as a weapon, it still needs to be in a place where you can easily guard it, and unless the arc reactor would be hidden behind a plate in the back. If it was not going to be used as a weapon,
which would be a dumb thing to have, because you'd have to turn your back for it.
Yeah, just so the chest makes the most sense.
Well, I think, Dan, real quick, do you want to talk about your movie? You don't have much time, but can you just tell us the movie you wanted to compare ours to?
I would have picked Punisher, but...
Don't say but. Now, why do you like that movie?
Because it was... Excuse me. It was dark, gritty, and entertaining.
And I think there was a slight bit of hopefulness with that movie as opposed to Punisher Warzone.
Yeah, because this one was good.
I didn't want to see Warzone just because I really liked the original and I didn't want to ruin it.
Technically, this isn't the original.
Dolph Lundgren is the original.
Yep.
Okay, the first one.
Dolph Lundgren is the first one.
I'm talking
the
about
first and the original
day.
are the same thing. He just means the Thomas Jane one. What were you saying, Dustin?
Oh, and Warzone was directed by a woman, so it's going to be shit.
It was bad.
Hey, I want to bring up a quick topic of discussion. Do you think superhero movies about women need to be directed by women? And do you think superhero movies about non-white characters need to be directed by a non-white director?
Nope.
No.
Because people were going on about how Black Panther needs to have a black director.
No, it doesn't.
And I think that is the biggest problem. Okay.
That's
so
people read comic books, so...
Well, yeah, but T'Challa is not a black American. He's an African king. Right. And people will say, yeah, but a black person is going to be able to bring sensibilities. And so I'm like, no. The black people that live in America have never had any of those experiences that an African king who's from the smartest country in the world would have. And I don't think a woman needs to direct a woman's franchise, and a man doesn't need to direct a woman's franchise. You know what I'm saying?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
On any level.
So this whole Captain Marvel movies, or was it Wonder Woman that's got to be directed by a woman? I think it's all just marketing.
Mm-hmm.
It's stupid, too. We live in that fucking kind of world.
Really?
It's just a bunch of shit. Shell out their money to you.
It just needs to be what's the best. Who's going to make the best movie? I don't care. Male or female, black or white, Hispanic.
Just don't let Spike Lee do it.
Yeah, just don't let Spike Lee do it.
Spike Lee.
Or Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, he sucks.
It'll be equally racist.
Exactly. Just have all the black
But
characters
imagine this,
and
though.